She was only 18 when they forced her into a marriage she never asked for. A marriage to a man whose name alone made grown people tremble. A mafia boss. Amara had expected pain, cruelty, and fear. But when she first heard his words, nothing could have prepared her for what came next.
The chandelier above the ballroom cast harsh light over Amara as she moved through the crowd, tray in hand, trying to appear invisible. Every eye seemed to judge her. Her cheap dress, her trembling hands, the way her skin didn't sparkle under the opulence surrounding her. A careless elbow from a socialite sent a glass of red wine spilling across her apron, dripping onto the crisp white cloth she wore like a uniform of shame. Laughter erupted, sharp and cruel. They really let anyone into these positions now? A voice sneered. I hope she's smart enough to know her place. Amara's fingers shook as she bent to clean up the mess. Every shard of glass reflected her humiliation, every drop of wine a reminder of the life she had no choice but to endure. She could hear her mother's warnings echoing in her mind. Baby, those people are dangerous. Don't let them break you. But it wasn't just danger here. It was mockery, power, and a world that treated her as if she were disposable. And then she felt the weight of a new gaze, a presence that didn't laugh or sneer. A man, dark and imposing, had risen from the head table. His eyes didn't look at the mess. They pierced through her. For the first time that night, she felt seen. Not as a maid, not as a joke, but as something human. Just 3 days later, the world she had thought she knew crumbled further. Her employer called her into the office, papers spread across a mahogany desk like a declaration of war. You'll be married to Luca Moretti, he said. No preamble, no discussion, just the words themselves, heavy and absolute. Amara froze, the color draining from her face. 18 years old, and already her life was no longer hers. She had expected cruelty from strangers, but she hadn't imagined it would arrive in the form of a legal contract, binding her to a man she had never met. She tried to speak, to argue, to protest, but no one listened. The documents were pushed toward her, pens waiting. Her pulse raced. Fear tangled with something else, a stubborn, dangerous spark of courage she refused to extinguish. I will survive this, she thought. I will not break, no matter what. She didn't know Luca Moretti yet. She didn't know the strength behind his eyes, the calculated control he wielded over everyone around him, or the violent reputation that preceded his name. But she did know this. From the moment she signed those papers, her life had changed forever. And the question that haunted her as she walked away from the office, trembling but upright, was one she couldn't yet answer. Would she endure the pain she expected, or would the first words of the man she feared most shatter her walls instead? She had signed the papers. She was now Luca Moretti's bride in every sense of the law. At 18, Amara had been told she would live in fear, obedience, and silence. But nothing had prepared her for the first words he spoke when they met. Words that would fracture everything she thought she knew about pain, power, and the man she feared most. The mansion loomed around her like a fortress, its marble floors cold beneath her trembling feet. Luca Moretti's presence was everywhere before she even saw him. The weight of expectation, the sharp scent of his cologne, the quiet authority that demanded obedience without a single command. You're here, he said, voice low, smooth, but not unkind. Amara's heart stuttered. She had expected fury, control, cruelty. She had expected a cold, untouchable man who would treat her like property. Instead, he was watching her, not with judgment, but with something that felt like calculation, something almost human. I am, she whispered. Her throat felt dry, her hands numb. He studied her for a long moment, eyes dark, unblinking. Then, as if making a decision, he stepped closer. Do you know what you've done? Yes, I signed the contract, she answered, voice barely audible. No, he said. "You've survived. You walked into a world that could have destroyed you in an instant, and you didn't flinch. That," he paused, letting the words land, "that is rare." And worth noting, Amara froze. Her pulse raced. Was this kindness or another trap? Could anyone be so calm, so controlled, so dangerous, and yet tender? Over the next days, Amara moved through the mansion like a shadow. Each task, each step, each whispered interaction with the household staff was a test. Hers, theirs, his. Luca never gave explicit orders, yet every action she took seemed measured, observed, evaluated. She saw the fear in the servants' eyes, the quiet respect, the invisible lines she was not meant to cross. And she began to understand something terrifying. He wasn't just a man. He was a force. Every gesture calculated, every word deliberate. Yet when he spoke to her, it was different. It was personal. One evening she entered his study to deliver documents, and he didn't glare. He didn't order her to leave. Instead, he gestured to a chair. "Sit. You've earned it," he said. Amara's hands shook as she obeyed. Sit. Earned it. These were words she had never heard from a man like him. Words that didn't command, but acknowledged. What do you mean?" she asked, curiosity and fear lacing her tone. "I mean that I see you. Not the contract, not the girl I was forced to marry, not the staff. You," he said, eyes locking on hers. "You are more than anyone anticipated. Don't make me regret noticing." The tension was electric. Her heart hammered in her chest. This man, a mafia boss, feared by the city, untouchable, was speaking to her as if she were the center of his world. And yet, there was danger in every syllable. A storm lay beneath those calm eyes, a storm that could devour her as easily as protect her. Days later, Amara stumbled in the kitchen, nearly dropping a tray of fragile glasses. Before she could apologize, Luca appeared silently, taking the tray from her hands with a precision that startled her. "You're exhausted," he said. Not a command, not a criticism, a statement. And then, unexpectedly, he offered her a glass of water, a small blanket, a careful look that made her feel seen for the first time since her humiliation at the gala. She stared at him, mind racing. Was this manipulation, a test, or could someone so terrifying truly care? And then she remembered her mother's voice. "Baby, courage matters more than fear." Could she trust him? Could she survive this world without losing herself, or her heart? The question hung between them, silent but heavy. And as Luca left the room, closing the door behind him, Amara realized that the man she expected to hate, the man who had every reason to intimidate, control, and crush her spirit, might just be the one to break her walls instead. But when the first threat arrived at the mansion, would the protection he offered be enough? Or would Amara discover that survival came at a cost far higher than she imagined?
The mansion had never felt so quiet. Not the usual hum of servants, not the distant rumble of traffic outside. Something was coming, something that would either destroy the fragile trust Amara and Luca had built, or cement it forever. How do you face the man who has always terrified you, when he is also the only one keeping you alive? The alarms blared, echoing through the marble halls. Red lights flashed, painting the walls in frantic strokes. Amara's heart raced. She had learned the layout, every hidden passage, every locked door, yet nothing prepared her for the sound of footsteps outside the East Wing guest suite. Luca appeared in the doorway, calm but alert, his presence filling the hall. "Stay behind me," he said, voice low. Not a question. A command she knew was for her survival. Amara nodded, gripping the hem of her dress, adrenaline sharpening every sense. Outside, shadows moved like predators. The city's elite, or those they'd angered, had hired more than just muscle. This was precise. Calculated? Personal. They descended into the hidden safe room, the steel door sealing them in. Screens lined the walls, showing intruders combing the mansion, unaware they were being watched. Luca moved, with practiced ease, issuing silent orders to his team over a headset. Amara sat on the couch, hands clenched, fear warred with curiosity. She had expected a man who dominated through fear, cruelty, and command. Instead, she watched him operate lethal efficiency tempered with a protective precision aimed at her survival. And then he looked at her, really looked at her. "You need to know," he said. "Everything I do for more than control. You've shown me that someone can exist in my world and still be untouchable. Your courage, your honesty, it changes things." Amara's throat tightened. Could someone like him truly care? Or was this another lesson in power? The intruders breached the outer perimeter, but Luca's security team was ready. Gunfire rang out, but inside the safe room, Luca took her hand. "Amara, listen. I'm not asking for anything from you except to trust me. I know you've been humiliated, afraid, and forced into a life you never chose. But surviving this, surviving me, it will require everything you've got." Her eyes filled with tears, but not for fear, for understanding. This man, feared by everyone in Chicago, who had every right to intimidate, to demand, to control, had never once sought to break her spirit. He had protected her, honored her, and in doing so, begun to earn her trust. Amara found her voice steady and clear. "I'm not leaving. Not now. Not ever. I'll face this with you." Minutes later, the gunfire stopped. Surveillance confirmed the threat neutralized. Luca reappeared, bloodied but unbroken. He exhaled deeply, his hand finding hers instinctively. "You were right to stay," he said softly. "Fear might have kept you alive, but courage made you invaluable." Amara felt something shift inside her. The walls she had built around her heart, hardened by years of pain and humiliation, began to crumble. And as she looked into his eyes, the man she had feared and resented, she realized she no longer needed to hide behind them. Later, in the quiet aftermath, Amara stood on the balcony of the East Wing suite, watching the sunrise paint the Chicago skyline in gold and pink. Luca's presence was beside her, steady, reassuring. She had been forced into this life, yet somehow, in the chaos and danger, she had discovered strength, courage, and a man capable of seeing her worth. And now the question lingered. Can love truly flourish in a world built on power, danger, and fear? Or is it the very danger that makes it impossible to ignore? If you were Amara, would you trust Luca? Could you forgive the past, embrace danger, and find love in a world where fear and power collide? Comment below, we want to hear your take. And don't forget to subscribe to see what challenges await Amara and Luca next. Their story isn't over, it's only just beginning.